Good evening, everybody. It's 6 o'clock and it's the Planning Committee meeting. So welcome to another remote planning meeting. First of all, a little bit of general housekeeping. I'm Councillor Margaret Glancy, Chair of Planning. Prior to this evening's meeting, we have been testing the technology and I can confirm that the speakers are in attendance and can be heard. I can also confirm that I can see or hear my fellow participating members here this evening. Those members are, and I would just like to introduce them now. And once I've done that, if each member could say, yes, I'm here, that would be absolutely brilliant if they could acknowledge their name. And the first one is Councillor Bindloss.
Yes, I'm here, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Brown.
Yes, I'm here. Thank you, Chair.
Councillor Chandler. You're on mute, Councillor Chandler. No.
I'm in and out all the time. I can't have any connection with you at all. It's a brand new iPad I got yesterday, and it's just not working with this. It's been working all day, but it's not working with this. I'm in and out. Can't follow you at all.
Okay, well, if you can keep, I think we'll have to keep an eye on that, Natasha, because if Councillor Chandler misses part of the debate, it may cause a few problems.
Yes, we'll keep our eye. Can Councillor Chandler hear us now? Can we just confirm that she can hear us?
I can hear you now. I can hear you now, but then it keeps going and it just goes blank and it says leave the meeting.
Oh, okay.
It does sound like a connection issue. If it's asking you to, if it's making you leave the meeting. So all we can do really is keep our eye on that, and we'll advise you if Councillor Chandler leaves.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Councillor Faulkner.
Yes, I'm here,
and I can see you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yes, I'm here. Councillor Hewson.
Yes, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Higgins.
Yes, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Holmes.
Present.
Thank you. Councillor Posnett.
Present.
And we have Councillor Pritchett, who is substituting for Councillor Wood. I can't see Councillor Pritchett here yet.
No, Councillor Pritchett hasn't joined us yet. We are just trying to call him now to see if we can get hold of him. But I can confirm that Bob Power has just joined us.
I can see that. If you could let me know when Councillor Pritchett joins, because I've got a little bit to go through anyway. Hopefully he'll be here before we start the first item.
I will do.
Councillor Steadman.
Yes, Chair.
Okay, thank you very much, everybody. And we have a team of officers present this evening as well. We have the planning solicitor, who is Mr. Bob Power. We have the Assistant Director for Strategic Planning and Delivery, which is Jim Worley.
Hi.
We have the Planning Development Manager, who is Louise Parker. We have the Democratic Services Manager, who is Natasha Taylor. And we have Democratic Services Officer, which is Sarah Evans. So welcome, everybody. So, as usual, members speaking. I'd be grateful if you could please use the raise hand facility on your screen, and a member of the Democratic Services team will make a note and inform me accordingly, or indeed I may spot it myself on my screen. Members voting, please note a remote member participating in a vote will cast his or her vote as if participating in a recorded vote. I will ask members alphabetically for their vote, for, against, or abstain. All microphones will be unmuted whilst the vote is being recorded. Following the vote, all microphones will be returned to mute. Disruption of remote conferencing. I refer you to the remote meeting procedure rules. In the event of a link failure for all attendees, I will call a short adjournment of up to 5 minutes. If the link cannot be re-established, the meeting shall be adjourned to a later date. In the event of a link failure to individual members, the remote members will be deemed to have left the meeting at the point of failure of the equipment. And if the link cannot be re-established before the end of the meeting, then the presumption will be that the meeting should continue to deal with the items providing the meeting remains quorate. If there is disruption with the members' connectivity, the planning solicitor will determine whether a member has heard enough of the debate to be able to lawfully vote, depending on the particular circumstances and how much the member has missed. This meeting is being recorded, and remember it is being live streamed. I'd be grateful if you could please put your phones onto silent. Agenda items. Apologies for absence. We have one apology from Councillor Wood, and Councillor Pritchett has agreed to substitute for Councillor Wood, but Councillor Pritchett hasn't joined the meeting as yet, as far as I can see. I'd be grateful if we could confirm the meetings of the minutes of the 15th of October. And rather than go through my list of councillors for agreement, I will assume every member agrees the minutes unless you raise your hand to indicate otherwise. Councillor Posnett, you have your hand raised.
I only raised it to say that I would propose that they're accepted.
Yeah. Okay. Could we have a seconder for that, please, for the minutes? Councillor Holmes, you have your hand raised. Thank you very much. So my assumption is that everybody agrees with the minutes, so there's no need to go through the list of councillors here this evening. Thank you very much for that. Item 3 on my agenda that I keep losing. Declarations of interest. Please note the content of the advice on members' interests, and if you think you have a personal, either non-pecuniary or pecuniary interest or bias, please state that now. Councillor Posnett.
Yeah, I've got a personal non-pecuniary interest as a member of Leicestershire County Council.
Thank you very much. Are there any other declarations of interest? No.
There's no further hands raised.
There isn't. Okay, thank you very much for that.
Councillor Glancy, before you move on, can I just check that we still have got Councillor Chandler with us? I've just noticed that her screen is blank. She's disappeared from the screen, so I just thought we'd better check to make sure she still is with us in the meeting.
Councillor Chandler, are you still with us? Seems to have gone.
I can hear you, but I can't see you.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
I can hear you, but I can't see you.
Okay, thank you very much for that. I wonder if it's worth turning the video off, do you think, and just leave her on sound? Is that an idea, Natasha?
Yeah, we'll see if we can do that, Councillor
Okay.
Glancy.
Thank you. Right, so that is item 3. Now we have.
Excuse me, Chair, I had my hand raised.
You did. Oh, I didn't see it. Sorry. I was waiting and pausing, thinking you were going to raise your hand, and yeah.
Yeah,
But
sorry, yeah.
you were on mute.
Yeah, just carrying interest in the item on the Kirby Ballas item. I'm going to be speaking on behalf as the ward councillor, so I will take myself out of the meeting, Chair. Okay.
Okay. Thank you very much for that. Please bear with me, lots of paper shuffling this evening. And we have 2 applications on the agenda this evening. The first one is item 4.1, which is 20/00652/REM, which is reserve matters, erection of 20 dwellings relating to the approval of reserve matters at field OS 3500 Heckadeck Lane, Nether Broughton. Members, please note this is a reserve matters application to consider access, appearance, landscaping, layout and scale only. Officers, I'd like welcome you to address the committee this evening. Who's doing this one? Is it Louise?
It is, Chair. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Before I take you to the presentation of the plans, there's an update quite a lengthy one, so I do apologise. As you've just stated, Chair, the proposal is presented to members as an application for 20 dwellings with all matters for consideration, being access, scale, layout, appearance and landscaping. Discussions have been held with the agent, who considered that access had already been granted at outline. However, through review of the outline consent permission and an acceptance of the current revised description by the applicant, the local planning authority are satisfied that all matters were reserved at the approval of the outline application. A response was received from the local lead flood authority on the additional information provided, which demonstrates adequate surface water drainage. The LLFA, however, have requested additional information regarding the outfall from the site, but this information would be required in order to discharge condition 7 of the outline planning permission and considered at that point. Outstanding highway layout matters. Further information on visibility and tracking has now been received. The Highway Authority has confirmed that the tracking is acceptable and the internal layout is to an adoptable standard. They have requested a stage 1 road safety audit and accompanying designer's response to be submitted in support of the application, which will identify if there are any design concerns regarding the proposed access. This is now the only outstanding matter which, once resolved, will satisfy the highway element for this site. Conditions relating to the provision of visibility displays are requested. It should be noted that if members are to approve the application this evening, the decision would need to be delegated to officers to determine following the satisfactory submission of a road safety audit. Other consultation responses that have been received since the publishing of the report, the parish council have made a further representation, and in summary, they still have significant concerns with the provision of infrastructure linking the site with the rest of the village. Heckadeck Lane currently does not have a full pavement, as in the absence of the proposed new housing, there is no need for it. The plans only provide for new pavement in that area around the entrance to the site. The parish council agree that access towards the village hall and the Anchor pub is fine by crossing over the land and walking west, but pedestrian access eastward towards the church is a completely different and opposite direction along Heckadeck Lane towards Church End, where there is no pavement along either side of the road. They state that the lane is quite narrow, with bends restricting visibility. It is a primary route from the A606 towards the Vale, used by cars and HGVs. Pedestrians will not do what the report suggests, but rather take the much shorter route east along Heckadeck Lane. Pedestrian safety is a significant planning consideration, and the parish council believe provision of a full pavement should be responsibility of the developer, as the need is only as a result of this development. A further letter from a third party benefiting from a private right of way across the site. This confirms no objections, subject to no obstruction or the right of way. Comments that there may be interference because the rear gardens of plots backing onto Nottingham Road straddle the right of way, but the matter can be resolved by granting right of way on the other side in exchange for release of the existing right of way. So if I now take you to the plans. So as the site is outlined in red, it lies to the edge of Nether Broughton and is currently a greenfield site. There is a single vehicular access from Heckadeck Lane and a further pedestrian access at the western end of the development. The dwellings comprise 2 1-bed, 4 2-bed, 9 3-bed and 5 4+ bed units. An ecological buffer zone runs along the eastern boundary, and a wide variety of both plant and wildlife opportunities are provided within the scheme. A further condition, number 4 of the proposed conditions in the report, reaffirms the requirement to maintain a 4-metre buffer zone from the boundary of residential gardens. A request was made to the applicant for the existing hedgerow at the front to be retained or replaced, and this has been replaced with an ornamental hedgerow, not a native species. Members should need to consider whether an ornamental hedgerow would be considered acceptable in this location, and if not, a further condition would need to be added to ensure a native species hedge. In addition to the information which is presented to members this evening, further information will be submitted separately to address condition 4 of the outline planning permission. This condition reads, development shall not be begun until details of design for off-site highway works being suitable footpath facilities on Heckerdeck Lane have been approved in writing by the local planning authority, and no dwelling in the development shall be occupied until that scheme has been constructed in accordance with the approved details. The condition makes it clear that off-site works are required to discharge this condition, and consideration of an extended footpath would form part of the determination which is outside the remit of the reserved matters before you. 4 of the dwellings are single-storey bungalows, although 2 of these also have a bedroom in the roof space. The remaining 16 dwellings are all 2-storey and range in their design and style. To conclude, following on from the submission of amended plans to overcome earlier issues and the consideration of the need to submit further information in order to discharge conditions relating to the outline permission, the application is recommended for approval, subject to conditions as set out in the report. Thank you, Chair.
Please.
Thank you very much for that. Do members have any questions of Louise at all?
I do apologise, Chair. Can I just pass over to Mr. Worley at this point, please?
Okay, yes, of course you can, yeah.
Yeah. Could you put the slides up again, Louise, and go back a couple?
Certainly.
Please, thank you. That's the fella, thank you. Yeah, I just wanted to home in on this issue because I know it's been raised by a number of people, and I think we'll hear more about it from the speakers very shortly. And it's just a function of the way that these sometimes wretched outline planning permissions fragment the whole process, so that at no stage do you get like the complete picture. So obviously we've already had the outline a couple of years ago, which established the principle. This is reserved matters this evening, which is strictly, as you know, strictly defined in law to those matters that comprise reserved matters, which includes access. But then also, and this is what Louise read out, there's a third stage to go, which is about discharging, I think, 20 and odd conditions on this application site. And for this footpath debate, there lies the, well, both the thing that's caught us out, but also the answer, because as a separate future exercise, they will have to present to us off-site works for an extended footpath. So they're not shown here tonight. Indeed, they couldn't be because it's not a reserved matters, but there is a requirement for them later. So my advice to the committee is that we probably need to postpone that part of this debate for a future date.
Okay, thank you. Right. Do we have any questions of the officers at all? Can't see any hands raised. Let me just scroll down. Oh, we have one. Councillor Holmes.
We've got Councillor Holmes.
Yeah, just spotted Councillor Holmes.
You're muted, Elaine.
Unmute.
Right, I was concerned about, you can hear me now?
Yes, can do.
Yeah, I was concerned about this footpath when I went along there. I can quite see how it will be able to, I know you say you're going to reserve it for another time, but I can't quite see how it's going to be possible when some of it wouldn't be in the ownership of the site. I may have got this wrong, but it's very, very narrow to the end, isn't it?
Yeah, they'll have to make use of highways land, basically, and it overlaps with the highway authority's duties as well, you know, through the agreements that all developers have to get from the highways. But that submission has not been designed and put to us yet, so, so I'd be speculating if I said anything more.
Right. Thank you. Thank you.
Councillor Steadman, you have your hand raised.
Yes, just a quick question for Mr. Worley. When you discharge the condition on access and footpaths, etc., is it possible for us to request that the ward councillor is involved in that?
Oh, absolutely. You can instruct any way you like, as you well know, as you often do.
Don't give me that kind of power, please.
That saves me asking that question. Thank you very much, Mel. Any other questions for the officers before we continue? Nope. Okay, thank you. We have 4 speakers this evening. Each will have 3 minutes each. The first one is Councillor George Schmidt from the Parish Council. If we can bring Councillor Schmidt forward, please. I think you're on mute. There you go.
Unmuted from our end.
No, you're fine now. We can hear. Well, we can hear you. Right.
Can you see me?
I can see you as well. Thank you very much. Right, you have 3 minutes.
I'd like to obviously take my 3 minutes, but Jim Worley has just thrown me an absolute curveball by saying that there are matters that have been raised already in the discussion to start with, and then followed on by Jim, that says that aspects of the councillors, the report that the officers produced, which addressed our concerns about the footpath, were then not addressed at that time as being not relevant to this stage. So if that's the case, it's probably pointless in me carrying on with the talk. Is that correct?
I would think so, because you're referring to something which isn't relevant to this particular application this evening.
So in many respects, I'd just like to have some...
Chair, if I may.
Yeah, but there is no point, sorry, Jim. You're frozen, Jim.
It was just that point about the footpath, on the plans remains.
That is our major concern. It's the access into the village along Heckadeck Lane. And if that's going to be discussed and considered at a later date, then no, the parish council have no other major objections to this planning application. But we would just like to have assurance that this matter will be considered strongly as we go forward.
Okay, well, thank you for that. I'm sure that will be considered by officers and should we decide for the ward councillor to be involved, I'm sure that'll be included then. So are you happy with just addressing the committee with that short address? Anything else you would like to say?
Not at this stage. It okay. Is a site that has got, I mean, I was going to actually start the whole talk by saying that the site, when it was approved prior to the adoption of the Melton local plan, the officers themselves highlighted concerns over the sustainability of the site, as did Highways, but it was a pressure to meet the house 5-year supply that resulted in the approval. So I would like to say that it is incumbent on, I think, yourselves as well as ourselves to try and make decisions on the plans as they go forward. And this will be at every stage, both this and at subsequent stages, that we do as much as we can to improve the sustainability of the site. And I think that will include access and connectivity with the rest of the village. Hence, I would like to have some sort of assurance that safety along Heckadeck Lane is an important feature to make this site as sustainable as possible going forward.
Okay, thank you. Do we have any questions of Councillor Schmidt? Actually, I can see Mr. Power's hand raised. Do we want to come in at all now? You're on mute.
Yeah, it's not really in connection with this issue. I'm just a bit concerned when Councillor Pritchett actually joined the meeting and whether he's missed the officer update.
What, Councillor Pritchett? He's not.
Yes.
Is he here yet?
He appears to, yes.
Oh, actually, I can just see him now. So he's missed the officer's update and he's missed the first speaker. Yeah, okay. I'm looking to your advice on this one then.
Yeah, I think on that basis, my advice would be best for him to abstain on this one.
Okay, thank you. Did you hear that, Councillor Pritchett?
Affirmative, Madam Chair.
Okay, thank you. Right, sorry about that, Councillor Smith. Do we have any questions for Councillor Smith at all from members? No. Okay, well, thank you very much for your comments.
Thank you.
Thank you. Right, the next speaker is Piers Flavin, who is an objector. If we could call Mr. Flavin forward, please. Good evening again. Good evening. You have 3 minutes to address the committee.
Well, like my predecessor, obviously, I was expecting to cover some issues that may be out of remit, but out of respect for residents who feel these issues are important, I'm going to take my 3 minutes up with what's prepared. When the application was first made, the borough had a land supply shortage and the parish neighbourhood plan wasn't made. These circumstances led to permission for a development that in a different time would have most likely been unsuccessful because of objections to its size, density, siting, ecological damage and safety risks. This is why it's vitally important that these concerns must be mitigated for in the final plans. This development will create a serious risk for all pedestrians, new and existing, because of the lack of safe pedestrian access from the site to Middle Lane. Heckadeck Lane, which provides access, is a one-way street, and the lane becomes narrow after the site entrance with significantly reduced visibility at a point without a footpath. Any resident walking to the site from the centre of the village already faces these risks, like my daughter walking the dog after school, parents with pushchairs, joggers. Around 20 houses currently access their properties using a Heckadeck Lane. 20 new houses will double resident vehicle journeys and double pedestrian numbers, which means doubling the risk. The one-way nature of the lane adds to the risk. Although road users driving the wrong way might not be a planning consideration, it's reasonable to suggest that road users on a lane like this typically travel less cautiously where they don't expect to meet a road user coming the other way. Your report acknowledges the risks. It says, a footpath extending the whole length of Heckadeck Lane towards Church End is desirable to enhance the safety of all pedestrians travelling in this direction. Perhaps the committee can reflect on how a choice not to enforce a footpath here, which I realise you can't do tonight, would be viewed if there's a tragedy with a parent losing a child coming home from school, or someone collecting conkers from the conker tree that's there, or a mum coming back from placing flowers on a churchyard gravesite. The plans also outline a second footpath egress into the middle of a lay-by, which is in regular use at the western end of the site. This is within your remit, I believe. A 2018 ROSPA pedestrian safety report states that accidents are commonly caused by pedestrians crossing the road between stationary or parked vehicles. Can the committee propose a change to the footpath route so that it has an egress closer to the A606 in order to provide better visibility along both Heckadeck Lane and on vehicles turning off the A606? Pedestrian safety is also a serious concern for the construction period when works vehicles are regularly entering and exiting the site. While some habitat is protected, hedgerow protection on the northern and southern edges of the site appear to be below the 4-metre buffer width, and I urge the committee to ensure that these hedgerow buffers are increased to compensate for the loss of habitat. Lane hedgerow must be lost to provide access. The revised plans are not clear if the remaining hedgerow will remain and appear to show hedgerow removal at the lay-by up to the gas governor. Finally, the size and positioning of the surfacing in front of the pumping station implies a need for regular vehicle access, although a gateway isn't included in the plans. This needs clarification since access would breach the condition of no access to the site from Heckadeck Lane.
Thank you very much. Do we have any questions from Mr. Flavin? No. Thank you very much, Mr. Flavin. Thank you. Our next speaker is Daniel Brown from Grace Homes. You're on mute, Mr. Brown. Thank you.
Well, good evening.
Good evening. You have 3 minutes to address the committee.
Thank you. I guess I'd like to focus on some of the other positives this development will bring. I appreciate the issue of the off-site highway works is to be debated separately. But let's not forget this is a consent for up to 25 dwellings, restricted to just 20 by condition, and we respect that. 8 of them will be affordable homes. We've got a good mix of types, as the officer has said, with bungalows and smaller dwellings and family homes. It is recommended for approval, which we clearly welcome. The ecological issues we have already successfully dealt with. In fact, we've already obtained our Natural England licence, and we have translocated the newts. So that's an update on the report as well. And we are due to commence archaeological works early in 2021. So, we are committed to delivering a really high quality scheme here. You may or may not have come across Grace Homes before, but we are a very high quality developer. And we build circa 50 new dwellings a year in Leicestershire and Northampton. And we do understand what development impact on village locations such as this, and we respect that. The other matters raised, which we have dealt with, are the surface water drainage, where the LFA are now content that we will be attenuating a greenfield discharge rate into existing watercourses. And the highway point, in terms of the access, is, we believe, agreed with visibility displays, etc. And I don't think I would get into the debate at this stage about linkages to the east, but clearly there will be a new footway along the front of the site, and I have to ask what existing residents do to walk along Hecate Lane. But I accept the point that we will be adding additional new dwellings to the village. And then just with regards hedges, we fully intend to retain hedges on north-east-west boundaries. There is a 10-metre wildlife buffer along the east flank, which we will deliver. And where we can on the frontage, where visibility permits, we will retain or replace with hedge. So those are the points I thought I should put across to you, and thank you.
Thank you very much. I see we have 2 hands raised. I presume 3 now. I presume it's to question Mr. Brown. The first one is Councillor Higgins.
Not necessarily a question, but as the speaker raised the footpath issue, and I have to say, is when I was looking at the site and went to the site in outline and recently, I just think if I was a decision maker, and bearing in mind we did see what the applicant had put to the committee on the road in writing just before, I would be really concerned if the footpath was not substantial in terms of linking this site with the rest of the amenities of the village. We shouldn't be building housing, forcing people onto the physical highway of the road or into verges and muddy paths. It's not really the done thing to do. The other issue I do want to make on the highways, this is a one-way street, and if you have to walk that way to the main road, you have to walk with your back to the traffic that will go along that main road. It's not sensible to my mind. And so if that decision was in front of me today and we were just talking about a few yards of footpath, I'd be saying it's not acceptable in design D1 terms. That is my view at this stage. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Faulkner.
Yes, thank you, Chair. I'd just like to get some clarification about the access to the pumping station, because the previous speaker mentioned it, and I'm not sure quite yet how I get there. So perhaps we could be enlightened.
So the intention is that the road will be adopted inside the site, and any maintenance vehicle would access via the site. That said, there is adopted highway abutting the front, and near the gas governor position there is the existing lay-by, which Mr. Flavin raised. But the intention is that the maintenance vehicles would access via the site and not via the adopted highway as it stands.
Well, when you say they get access via the site, there seems to be quite a long way between where the road is and where the pumping station is.
Yeah, sure.
Are the vehicles not going to go to the actual pumping station? Is it just people?
People generally, yes. It obviously has telemetry, but the pumping station is located in the most optimal position in terms of it functioning, and one of the lower points of the site on the front there. And on the odd occasion, an access vehicle would have to get there. So I'm just looking at the plan. It is possible it would park on Heckadeck Lane, yes.
Right. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you. Next one is Councillor Holmes.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Can hear me, can't you? I'm not muted, am I?
No.
I just wanted actually to congratulate Mr. Brown. He said that he would be retaining all hedges, and actually saying that is rather good, because the two of the latest developments in my village, although they should have been left, have been taken away. And also that you are going to adopt the road. That is vitally important as well, I think. I do understand that it is very difficult, this the width of the road and everything like that, which is going to be sorted hopefully later. I don't quite know how, but I just wanted to congratulate him on what he said, and I'm sure he said that he'll keep up to it, so I hope he will. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Councillor Steadman, I saw your hand up. Have you put it down again?
Councillor Faulkner asked the same question.
Okay, that's fine. I thought that was the case. Thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. Brown.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Thank you. Our final speaker on this application this evening is Councillor Joe Orson, the ward councillor. If you could bring Councillor Orson forward, please. Good evening, Councillor Orson. You're on mute at the moment. There we go. We're live now. Okay, thank you. I'm sure you know the routine now. You have 3 minutes.
Thank you very much, Chair, and thank you for allowing me time to speak to you all tonight and address the committee. But a little bit like George earlier and Pierre, my thunder has been taken away by Mr. Worley and Ms. Parker with their announcements. But however, like Pierre, I think it's worth just running through a few things, although it does say that I have amended it already. I've been crossing out a few things already, so you're in luck there. But when the outline application went through, Chair, you will remember I declared a personal and pecuniary interest and didn't speak on this application, but has now long gone. On the housing mix, this is a vastly improved plan compared to the outline permission, and I certainly, like the parish council, support the housing mix. I'm very content with that. And like I say, I'd like to congratulate the developers actually for a much improved design. 20 houses. We come to highways issue now. 20 houses will attract what, maybe 40 adults, maybe 12 children, maybe 60 cars plus, coupled with the postman, the milkman, and nowadays the most commonly sought thing on the road, the white van man. There's going to be a lot of extra traffic, and I think it was Pierre who said 20 houses down Heckadeck, we're doubling up. It's going to make it quite a little bit of extra busy road on Heckadeck Lane. Heckadeck Lane, I often wondered where the name Heckadeck came from, by the way. No one's ever told me that, but it's a lovely name. But it's, as we all know, it's a one-way street, west to east, and it's one-way street for good reason. As Pierre's already echoed, it links on to the 606, and I do take his point and agree with him. It is a bit of a blind visibility up there, and also certainly blind when people are coming from the Nottingham direction, and that's clearly why it is a one-way street. A lot of you will remember the name Mike Sheldrake. He is a former highly respected Leicestershire County Council highway inspector. And he always said to me, the problem is with one-way streets is they encourage speeding. And they also can encourage people to lose their concentration because obviously they don't believe anything is going to be coming the other way. Some of your committee I did see in Netherbroughton the other day. And the reason I do that, because I walk Heckadeck Lane myself, sometimes up to 4 times a day. So I know virtually every pebblestone and every pothole on the side of the road there is. And I can vouch, some of the motorists do nip down there a bit quick. I have a choice of which way to walk Heckadeck, obviously, but I always walk east to west because it's safer to face the oncoming traffic, as we all know, because of the bend. The omission of the footpath is glaring. I was going to request the committee to look at section 14 of the outline permission. Obviously, Mr. Worley has already confirmed that's going to happen. I look forward to taking part in that decision process, and it is vitally important for the safety of residents in Netherbroughton and others that this footpath is linked from the access down to Church End. Thank you very much, Chairman.
Thank you for that. Do we have any questions of Councillor Orson? Do we have any hands raised, Natasha? Because I can't see them all on my. Oh, we have one. No, here we go. Councillor Higgins.
Councillor Higgins.
Yeah, I've just spotted it.
I know the officers have directed not to talk about the footpath, but I think it is kind of important, though the Councillor also did raise it. I think as Councillor Steadman asked Mr. Worley about directing applicant, the local planning authority and maybe the ward councillor. So my question to Councillor Orson is, would you be wanting to get involved on that footpath debate when it, because I think it needs somebody to sign it off. And if you've had what I think is a material conversation with the highways officer about speeding, and you obviously know Heckadeck Lane, it does need someone with that local knowledge, to enter that part of the debate.
Through you, Chair, if I could answer that question.
Yes, of course you can.
George, Parish Council, and Pierre and other residents of Netherbroughton know I walk up that road, like I say, 2, 3, 4 times every day. I know it unbelievably well and be very, very happy to sign the improvements off.
Thank you.
As ward councillor, that is, Chairman. Yeah.
Thank you. Right, any more questions for Councillor Orson? Nope, I can't see any anyway. So thank you very much, Councillor Orson.
Thank you, Margaret.
Thank you. Do officers want to come back with anything, further comments, what they've heard from the speakers? No. Okay. Now, do members have any questions of officers following what they've heard this evening from the speakers? Councillor Steadman, you have your hand raised.
Yes, I think it was Mr. Flavin raised the issue of a lay-by, which, if my memory serves, is actually a gateway just after you've turned off the A606. Is it possible to? I know that that gateway used to be used by the house opposite to park one of their cars. Is it possible to either make that an official lay-by, if it's legal to do that, or to completely close it off?
Who would like to answer that? Looks like it could be Louise.
Yeah, the issue with that is if it's not within the application side, then it's not something that we can look at as part of the planning application. So because it's outside of the red line, it's not something that we can instruct as part of this permission.
But the actual gateway that's sat there will be planted out, so there's no access from that lay-by straight into that pumping station. Only the pedestrian access that comes out further down the lane.
Yeah, so if we go back to the site layout plan, the access is shown for the site, and there's no other access. And there's also a condition on the outline as well, which states vehicular and pedestrian access, both allowing and restricting.
Okay,
Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Powell, you have your hand raised.
Sorry, Chair, I was just going to say that I don't think that's within the scope of tonight's decision. It's concerned with the highway, and I think the reserve matters we're dealing with tonight don't relate to highway.
Quite correct. Thank you. But thank you anyway, Councillor Steadman, for raising it. Thank you. Now, members, as there's no further questions for officers, it's over to you to debate. And as usual, if you just raise your hand and then I'll call you forward. Councillor
Glasgow.
Actually, before we go, I've just realised, yes, can we just double check that Councillor Chandler can hear us? Because we've had sort of intermittent connectivity for Councillor Chandler.
I can hear, can't see very much, but I can hear. I keep losing you though. It's not, I can't say it's 100% by a long way.
No. Did you manage to hear the speakers?
Not all of them, no. I won't take part in anything now.
Okay, thank you very much for confirming that. Thank you. I'll go back now to Councillor Faulkner. You have your hand raised.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Yeah, I'm still concerned about this access to the pumping station. It seems to me that they're relying on being able to park on Heckadeck Lane if they need to get a vehicle to it. I don't think that's really acceptable, because if there's something there when they want to come, they're not going to be able to get there. I think there should be some access to it from the site somehow. I'm not saying how, but all you got at the moment is that footpath. And I'm concerned that if they've got to get a vehicle to it, and there's vehicles parked in Heckadeck Lane in that supposed lay-by, they're not going to be able to get to it.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you. Any other comments? Do we have any other hands raised, Natasha?
No, there are no further hands raised.
Okay, we're all very silent this evening. Can I rely on? Here we go, Councillor Higgins. I knew I could rely on you. I'm just about to ask you, did you want? Sorry.
Well, I was busy writing notes. Anyway, okay. I'm pleased the footpath actually is part of the a later issue, because I really was struggling. And thanks to Jim and Louise for listening to my concerns and then giving me the reassurance about, I think it's condition 14 on the outline. And I do believe that, and like the ward councillor said, I think with the agent, they've come up with a reasonable scheme which has got some improvements on it. It does seem to me a little bit where you either have large housing with not many bedrooms or just small housing. So it doesn't seem to be anything in between, so to speak. But I'm willing to sort of take that on the chin, I think. But as long as the footpath is there, and though we shouldn't be featuring our thinking today, I just think if you don't do that, and I live on a unadopted lane with no footpath, and when I walked to the War Memorial the other day, it's about 50 yards from my house, and to walk back and just to put my shoes on and my suit on to take the standard on there, I just got completely filthy with all the puddles, the mud, the whole thing. And yeah, it's just not, we shouldn't be building houses that way and forcing residents to do that in the highway. And I do worry, especially if your back is to traffic on one way. But other than that, I think it's a good application. And so I'll probably go with to propose the recommendations in line with the officer recommendations, and then the delegations that they've asked for, I'm happy to include those in as well.
So is that a formal proposal, or you said you're quite happy too. So is that a formal proposal, or are you going to wait a bit longer for?
I'm happy to wait a bit longer. I don't need to propose it. I've just seen there's other people now wanting to speak, so I was just trying to move the debate on.
I know. Councillor Holmes, I saw your hand raised next.
Yeah, well, I was going to propose the application actually, or second the application. So if Councillor Higgins wants to propose it, I'm quite happy to second it. One thing that I did, and I mentioned it to the applicant or the applicant's agent, about they were keeping hedges and they were going to adopt the road inside. So important, I think. And it sounded to me as though they were a development that was going to listen to people. And I do understand the road outside, walked it, ridden it, on a horse many times. And it is as it is, but that's why, of course, it's one way. And I rather think there's a Heckadeck house, for anybody's information, and I think it was somebody called Heckadeck, because Heckadeck house is on the opposite side of the road. I think that's why it was called Heckadeck. I've always believed that. That's just a bit of useless information, but I'm quite happy to propose or second the application.
Right. So, as you're speaking, do you actually want to propose it? And then I can go back to Councillor Higgins.
Yes, all right, that's fine
Okay.
with me. And to the officer's recommendations anyway. Yeah.
Yes. Okay. And that is in, and also to have the extra condition. Well,
absolutely. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
Councillor Higgins.
Happy to second. I've just looked through my notes. There was something talking about an ornamental hedge. I'm more than happy for ward council, parish council officers to deal with that. I'm not fussed either way, but again, it's up to the proposer on that one.
I would have preferred to have had a hawthorn hedge. These ornamental ones can either die out or actually be very thorny, very thorny, and sometimes it's pretty unpleasant. I think I would like to see a hawthorn hedge, basically. In fact, I'm getting like one of the councillors and years ago who every garden had to have a hawthorn hedge around it, and that was Councillor Dames at the time. But I just think it would be rather nice instead of an ornamental, but to have. I would like to put that in. I don't know whether you would agree to that, Councillor Higgins.
I am happy. I am also more happy for parish councils and more councillors to decide these matters. But
I do understand where you're coming from. Yeah, but
it's up to you, Elaine. I'll second whatever you decide.
Yeah, well, I would prefer a hawthorn hedge, because it is really very much a rural site in a rural area, and I just think it's nice to keep natural species. That's all. Because it does help as well the ecology of the site. It actually helps the birds and bees and everything natural to our country, and I think that makes quite a difference.
Okay, I'll second that then, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Louise, you have your hand raised. Did you want some clarification on what was proposed? I dare say.
Chair, it's just with regards to the hedge. Some of the wordings could be, despite the landscaping that has been submitted, then there shall be a native hedging on that.
That's brilliant. That's very good. That's fine.
So it's native hedging.
Yes, please.
Okay. Councillor Steadman, sorry it's taken a while to get round to you.
I think you've about covered everything on my list, to be fair. I was going to say, can we condition native species hedge replacement planting? Although I like hawthorn hedges, have you ever fallen through one?
Yes,
they can be quite dangerous.
I've fallen into one.
I was a bit, and I assume if we condition the access and footpath to Councillor Orson, that he will be in dialogue with Councillor Smith anyway on that. So yeah, I'm fine with those conditions and happy to support the proposal.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. Anybody else wish to take part in the debate? Oh, Councillor Faulkner.
Yes.
Yeah, I just wanted to check that everybody else was happy with the access to the pumping station then. It's only me that seems to be concerned about it then.
On a Zoom meeting.
I think everyone's a bit silent on that, Councillor Faulkner.
That concerns me even more. Okay.
Okay, thank you. Yeah. Well, I've just got a couple of comments to make. As this is a reserved matter application, the mix is good, with 75% proposed housing is 1, 2 or 3 bed plus provisions for bungalows, which I think is really good. And I'm really pleased to see the biodiversity enhancements. It's a very welcome thing to have, because not all developers wish to do this. So I think I would just hope that other developers would have the same standard and the same thoughts when they put in their SUDs, and also they've provided hibernation features for great crested newts. So all in all, I think this is good. Although I am concerned about the footpath issue, but we know we can't fully discuss that this evening because it's not part of this application. But I'm quite happy to leave this to officers together with discussions with the ward councillor. So now that we've fully debated this item, I think it's time to go to a vote. So I will go through the list. We have a proposal to permit in line with officer's recommendation, plus an extra condition to delegate to officers relating to the footpath, and also to Councillor Orson. If I go through my list alphabetically, if you could either indicate for, against, or abstain. And the first one is Councillor Bindloss.
For, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Brown.
For.
Thank you. Councillor Chandler will not be taking part, I assume, because she's missed so much of it. So is that an abstention?
I think I would like it noted that I've the reason why that I've kept losing connection. Okay. Thank you.
If we could note that, please, on the minutes. The next one is Councillor Faulkner.
Abstain.
Okay. Councillor Glancy for. Councillor Hewson.
For.
Thank you. Councillor Higgins.
For.
Thank you. Councillor Holmes.
For.
Councillor Posnett.
For.
Councillor Pritchett, I assume you're abstaining because you've missed.
Abstaining. Abstain.
Thank you. And Councillor Steadman.
For.
Thank you. That is permitted. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 voting for, and we have 3 abstentions. 1 due to lack of connectivity. But thank you very much, everybody. If I had my gavel, I would hang it. I haven't got it. So. Okay. We now move on to the next item, which is 4.2.
Councillor Glancy, just before you move on, shall I move Councillor Brown into the waiting room with the attendees?
Just going to suggest that you do that. So yes, that'd be brilliant. Thank you. Right. Thank you. 4.2 item is 19/00256 erection of 3 2-bed single-story detached dwellings, land north of 55 Main Street, Kirkby Bellas. Officers to address the committee. Is this going to be Louise Parker again? Thank you.
It is, Chair.
Thank you very much.
So before I present the information to you, members will recall the application. It was considered at the meeting of the committee in October 2019. The application was deferred pending the submission of further information on housing need in Kirkby Bellas. Following this, a housing needs survey has been provided in support of the application and has been provided to members for their consideration. A full review of this assessment is contained within the report. If I just get the presentation up for you now. So the application lies on the edge of the village of Kirkby Bellas. There are footpath links to Frisbee and there are residential dwellings to the south and to the east of the site, albeit separated by the highway. The application site is accessed from Main Street, which lies to the north of the A607 Leicester Road. The proposal would have a similar visual impact to the fallback position of the 3 holiday cottages which currently have permission. The dwellings are single storey in nature and constructed of mellow red brick with dark concrete pan tiles. A visual appraisal has been submitted by the applicant which takes into consideration open areas, public rights of way and the relationship to existing dwellings. I appreciate I've gone through them fairly quickly, but the information that's been submitted hasn't changed prior to the original submission. To conclude, after the submission of needs survey, the applicant was requested to provide more specific information relating to housing needs for the village itself. No further information was forthcoming and the agent has requested that the application now be referred back to committee. Based on the evidence provided, we're not convinced that a case has been demonstrated for a proven local need for this proposal. And as such, the recommendation is to refuse planning permission on the grounds of being contrary to policy SS3.
Thank you. Do members have any questions of Louise before we call forward the speakers? Nope.
No, there are no hands raised.
Thank you very much. Well, we have 3 speakers this evening. The first one is Councillor Angus Smith from Kirkby Bellas Parish Council. If we call Councillor Smith forward, please. You're on mute. No, Councillor Smith, you're on mute.
Sorry about that.
There we go. Oh, don't worry. Don't worry. I don't know how many times I say that every meeting. One of those catchphrases now, I think. Yes, so you have 3 minutes.
Good evening, Madam Chair and committee, and thank you for allowing me to speak this evening. The Parish Council support this application as it did before, we believe it will provide desperately needed housing of this type to support the village development by providing houses that allow current residents to downsize and stay in the village. Over the past couple of years, there have been a large number of residents that have had to move out of the village that they loved, and in order to find a house that fitted their needs of downsizing and being accessible to them as they become challenged by the effects of aging years and as their families have grown and moved away. It will also enable new blood into the village in the houses that are released to the market, helping to rejuvenate the community in the heart of the village. As it is at the moment, there are limited movements of houses within the area. This application will also provide a starter home to enable a young family to move into the village, which helps grow the village and its community, and something that we desperately need to continue with. Although the village is classed as unsustainable, it is essential that it develops in an organic manner that enables it to survive as a thriving village community that still supports local shops and businesses, both in Kirkby and surrounding villages such as Asperby and Frisbee. This type of development is what the village needs and what it actually wants. and it is supported by the recent independent housing survey, as well as the housing survey carried out by Melton Borough Council 2012-2013. It is much better to have development within the centre and heart of the village than development of equine properties up the lanes that don't actually support the growth of the village and its community. And there have been a number of developments approved on the Thorpe Saxville Lane and Gadsby Lane. This does not support the centre of the village or the growth of the village community, as they don't get involved in village life and activities. The proposed layout of the development is in line with the street scene of the village.
Seconds, Chair.
And is in keeping with the surrounding properties without having any overbearing impact. The Parish Council do hope that this application will be approved, as it will mean that the village can continue to develop in the best possible way forward and grow and move away from what seems to have been a stifled growth over the past 20+ years. This is also both what the village has been asking for and needed for a considerable time. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Do we have any questions of Councillor Smith? No, can't see any hands raised. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you for addressing the committee this evening. Thank you. Our next speaker this evening on this application is Mrs. Dolan, who is the applicant.
Good evening, can you hear me?
Good evening.
Good evening.
Good evening. You have 3 minutes, Mrs. Dolan.
Thank you very much. Good evening. My name is Jo Dolan and I'm the applicant for this application. As you'll remember, the application was called in by Councillor Brown to committee in October last year. Members of the committee decided to defer the decision that night to allow me the opportunity to gather more evidence of a local need for 3 two-bedroom bungalows in Kirkby Bellas. I therefore instructed a housing needs survey to be undertaken in Kirkby Bellas, which was carried out in February this year. The results of the survey demonstrated a local requirement for a total of 2 affordable homes and 6 open market homes in Kirkby Bellas. 4 respondents indicated that their present home was too large and wanted to downsize to a 2-bedroom bungalow. I believe the results of this survey provides clear evidence of a local need for 3 two-bedroom bungalows in Kirkby Bellas, which we believe should be taken into consideration when determining this planning application. Members at last year's committee clearly steered me towards undertaking a housing needs survey in order to satisfy policy SS3, which I have done. Please may I also politely remind you that I previously submitted a letter from Schuler and Sons, estate agent, which also demonstrates that there is a clear demand for 2-bedroom bungalows in the village. I also think it's important to understand that Kirkby Bellas Parish Council continues to support this application alongside Councillor Brown and a number of other local residents. May I also note that the officer's report references an appeal in Barsby. As set out in my letter to members earlier this week, there are a number of differences between my scheme and the Barsby scheme that could lead to a different decision being made. As you are aware, each case needs to be viewed on its own merits and based on a balance of the material benefits against any policy conflict. As such, you could choose to approve this scheme and continue to defend other less suitable schemes, such as the Barsby case. Importantly, I have offered that one of the dwellings could be an affordable starter home to be marketed locally. This was previously discussed at committee last year and should be seen as a real public benefit of the scheme. I would also like to stress to members that this new application takes on board all comments made by the inspector to the previous appeal at the site back in 2018. And the design of the houses are identical to the holiday homes that were granted permission back in 2016.
30 seconds, Chair.
Okay.
In summary, this is a small-scale scheme which is in keeping with the character of Kirkby Bellas. would help to enhance the sustainability of the village by proposing a modest increase in residents who would boost usage of existing village services. The proposals are also clearly aligned with the government's commitment to significantly boost the supply of housing. In light of the evidence from the Housing Needs Survey, the application would provide 3 small bungalows, which are much needed in the village and the borough as a whole. I would therefore kindly urge you to consider my thoughts and approve planning permission for this application. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. Do we have any questions of Mrs. Dolan? I can't see any hands raised, Natasha.
No, there are no hands raised, Councillor Clancy.
Thank you very much for addressing the committee. Thank you.
Thank you.
Our next speaker this evening is Councillor Ronan Brown, who's the ward councillor.
Yeah. Chair?
Yes, we can do. You have 3 minutes, Councillor Brown, although I'm sure you know.
Yeah, just bear with 1 second. Yeah, that's better. Sorry, just give me okay, thank you, Chair. Thank you, Chair and committee members. I would like to state that I am in full support of the proposal to build 3 bungalows on this site in Kirkby-Bellis. The properties will be of modest size and bring a small amount of development to the village, which over several years has been unable to become as sustainable as it would like. The fact that there will also be 1 affordable starter home in this development will mean a 100% increase in affordable homes in the village, with the other one being a single council house. This will enable a younger family the opportunity to move to the village that has quite a few facilities. Kirkby-Bellis has a pub, village hall, church, 5A bus service, plus pathways to Asserby and Frisby. Frisby being 1.5 miles away, residents can easily access the local primary school, post office and other facilities such as cricket club and Asserby Amateurs Football Club. The village also has school buses taking children to Longfield School, John Fernley School. It also sits on the main artery A607, which is a main road that takes people into Melton Mowbray for employment and education. Plus, the 5A bus also serves Syston, Termiston, Leicester for taking people to university, college and work. In this report, there has been reference made to comparing Kirkby-Bellis to Bowersby and it being unsustainable. I would like to correct this because doing that it's like comparing apples to pears, 2 completely different scenarios. Going further, SS3 is not there to prevent development, it's there to encourage sustainable development and give villages the opportunity to develop in a sustainable way. And I quote, "It should be to support sustainable development proposals which contribute towards meeting local development needs, improving sustainability of our rural areas," which this does. The plan, local plan and the SS3 objective grants for new development in rural areas within the edge of existing settlements as long as in keeping with the scale and character of the local area. This does, contrary to the officer's comments in the report. Last year, the Planning Committee asked the applicant to go away and carry out a housing needs survey, which they have. The survey shows the need, and the applicant is also voluntarily offering an affordable home that gives an added benefit to the application, and which I very much welcome, as does the Parish Council and the rest of the community. Kirkby-Bellis has stronger sustainability credentials than many other SS3 villages, and much more than Bowersby, as quoted. I would urge the committee to look upon this application favourably and recommend to approve the development this evening. And thank you for listening.
Thank you for that. Questions of Councillor Brown? I can see hand raised. Councillor Higgins.
Yeah, thank you. Councillor Brown, with the affordable property, are you okay with that being in perpetuity and any cascade prioritisation with the young, you mentioned either start home or young family, with that being at the top of the cascading priority. And I suppose what I'm asking you is, would you want, if the committee was minded to approve it, that the cascading be drawn up in with your consultation? So you would work with the officers on that. Is that what you were asking for?
Yes, Councillor Higgins, I would do, and I would encourage. I would hope that we would encourage a family of the adults being 40 years or younger to take that, and also that it is marketed initially in the parish of Frisbee and Lerwick and the neighbouring wards.
Thank you.
Okay. I've just got one question. So is the intention then to have it as a discount market home, basically? Is that what we're talking about here?
That's correct.
Yeah, okay, thank you. Thank you very much. We have Mr. Power. You have your hand raised?
Very briefly, Chair, I just wanted to point out that I think the members were referring to discount market, not starter home, but you've got there before me.
Yeah, sorry. I was just a bit confused as to what we were actually talking about, which is why I asked for that clarification. Thank you. Mr. Worley, you have your hand raised as well.
Hello.
Yeah, just clarification.
I'm in a Zoom meeting. I'm sorry.
Oh, wasn't me. Just clarification again. Just checking the language means what it says really. So I think Councillor Brown said marketed it locally. So we're not talking about an occupation restriction here. We're talking about marketing it locally, and then the local people may not be the highest bidder, so it could be sold to me, or we wanted to go further than that.
Do you want to come back on that, Councillor Brown?
I would take the advice there from the officers and ensure that we can keep it as tight as we can to the local community, first of all. So I would leave that up to you as the committee to determine what the wording of that should be, Chair.
Thank you. We have Councillor Pritchett. I see your hand is raised.
Thank you very much, Madam.
Is it a question for Councillor Brown?
It is a question for Councillor Brown.
Yeah, okay.
Thank you very much for your presentation. Can I ask a question as to why suitable for a potential young family with small children? I couldn't find any play area and any real open space for them to play in with a dangerous road at the top. And I'm very much interested in that one.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, you're absolutely correct. There's not play areas, etc., in the village, but there's a lot of open space, open bridleways, and footpaths, etc. It is a short distance, just over a mile and a bit across the footpath to Frisbee on the Rig, which the nearest play area would be on the Bellway side. Also, it's just over a mile to Aspie as well across the paths. And looking at our communities, and until recently, Frisbee didn't have play areas, etc. But the natural conurbations and travelling is to the neighbouring villages, etc. So it would actually make Kirby more sustainable because it would bring younger people in who would use stuff like the village hall, etc., which, due to the growing older population, has less younger people using those facilities.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Worley, you have your hand raised still. Did you want to come back in again? You're on mute, Mr. Worley.
Yeah, just making sure still that got this correct in my mind at least. So are the restrictions that we're discussing being proposed for just the affordable houses or for all of the houses?
Do you want to come back on that, Councillor Brown?
Just the affordable house. That's what we would normally do, I believe.
Thank you.
Thank you, just so we know where we stand.
Okay, thank you very much. It's good to get clarification before we continue. Councillor Holmes, you have your hand raised.
Yeah, I was just for Councillor Brown. the affordable one, I do think it wants really tying down, because so many times local people, and they do need to have houses locally, somehow some obscure person from 20 miles away or 100 miles away has got a great aunt who's related to somebody, and they get it. And I just think to tie that down is really important, because local people do need local houses, and I think it is really important to tie it down, and I'm sure that you will do that. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Wall, you still have your hand raised.
Sorry, it's an old hand now.
Oh dear. It's still raised. Right, okay, thank you. It's gone now. Well, thank you very much, and thank you very much, Councillor Brown, for addressing the committee. Do officers have any further comments to make based on what they've heard this evening? No. Okay, thank you. Do members have any questions of officers before we continue with the debate? Councillor Higgins, a question for either, well,
I have had this conversation with Jim just offline, but just for transparency, I did raise, because it's mentioned in the report about an appeal, and that appeal is Barsby. If Jim could just repeat what he said to me on our phone call, because there are some material differences between the Barsby application, which offered no affordable housing, and the amenities with Barsby and the amenities in Kirby, if that's okay. Thank you.
Okay. Would you be able to do that, Mr. Worley?
Yeah, sure. They group together because they're both rural settlements as defined by the local plan. But I think we all have to acknowledge that the term rural settlements captures a great big range of different kinds of settlements. And I think it's probably undeniable that Kirby Bellis is towards the top of that in terms of its sustainability credentials compared to somewhere like, I don't know, Garthorpe or Barsby that's been mentioned, and you know, the list goes on, so to speak. So what I discussed with Councillor Higgins is in the balancing of the pros and cons, as we're required to in a case like this. You know, the cons size is less pronounced than it would be in one of those other locations, because it's not so sort of seriously deficient as it would be if we were talking about Leesthorpe, another example.
Thank you for that. Does that sort of answer your? Okay, thank you very much, Ms. Councillor Higgins. Right, over to you, members. If there's no more questions, Councillor Posnett.
Thank you very much, Chairman. I think this is a very good application. I think the affordable house is a very good offer, and as Councillor Brown said, there's only one other house in the village, which was a council house, and I agree with all of his comments, and I just think it makes a really pleasant change to see that we're having some development in a small place, a small village, that allows them to grow a little bit and get some new blood into the village. And I would be more than happy to propose that this application is accepted.
So is that a firm proposal?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much. Did you want to add anything on to that at all?
Well, only that I agree with the comments that have been made about the restrictions put on the house that's affordable.
Okay, thank you. So the next one is Councillor Steadman.
Yes, Chair, I would be prepared to second Councillor Posnett. I think the condition is, was it, if I'm reading this right, a discount market home for local needs set for a period of time. But can we condition that so that's made between the ward councillor and the officers to agree the conditions on that, or do we have to tie that down now?
I think I'd probably tie it down now, but I'd look to either Jim or Bob for clarification on that. Mr. Worley.
Chairman,
I'll go first, Bob, shall I? Yeah, we're well and truly into the territory of 106 here, and we won't tie it down tonight because we're probably talking several pages of text to deal with these cascades. It's not new to us. We can beg and borrow text that is used for affordable household schemes and adapt it. It's not a difficult task, but it gets very wordy. So that the resolution, if this is where we're going, needs to be couched in terms of approval, obviously, but with a condition, with conditions, normal conditions, as well as the starter home condition, and a 106 to do this local needs business.
Yeah, yeah.
We won't be on the starter home though, will we, Jim?
Sorry, did you say something, Mr. Power?
Yeah, sorry, Chairman. Jim mentioned starter home, but
it's a discount market home, isn't it?
It's into
discount market home again. Right. Okay. So, right. So, are you in agreement with that, Councillor Posnett, that we leave the conditions to officers going forward?
In perpetuity.
Yeah,
definitely. Okay. And in consultation, obviously, with Councillor Brown, if there is any consultation required.
Have we captured all that, Louise? Okay, right, you're happy with that. Okay, thank you very much. Had you completed what you were saying, Councillor Steadman? Because you still have your hand raised.
Yeah, I just wanted to finish. Yes, I will second Councillor Posnett's proposal there. But I'd also like to add that we did ask Mrs. Dolan to prove a local need, which she has done.
Yeah.
And I think, as Councillor Higgins said at our last council meeting, to have the ward and parish councillors and the developer all singing from the same song sheet is unusual and most welcome to see as well. So thank you, all of them.
Thank you. Councillor Higgins, you still have your hand raised.
No, it was a new one. As Councillor Posnett and Steadman have proposed and seconded, happy for a delegation with the ward councillor. I would like to see a minimum or at least a discount of 25% on the discount market housing, because it's bungalows and a detached house can increase that premium on there. But I would be happy for that to be decided with officers and the ward councillor. I think just for some context as well, and why we're departing probably from the local plan, and as Councillor Steadman said, the need survey doesn't quite, for me, hit SS3, but it does lead to some kind of proof that there is a local need. And if we had deferred to go and ask for that, as the officers were asking, I do believe that would be met. It just needed a few more questions to be asked. That all said, I think for me, because there has been the voluntary offer of an affordable house, which represents 33%, it's hugely significantly important that the applicant has offered this. And if it was 3 market houses, I don't think I would be supporting the application. I would be refusing on grounds of SS3. And because of the housing mix, which attracts positive weight owing to the smaller size of units that we're aware we do have a shortage, the specific location where this site is, not only within the settlement, but where the settlement is, bearing in mind the next settlement is Melton Mowbray, Ashford Frisbee, but it has very good connections to other areas as well. That's, I believe, where the exception to the local plan could be justified, and that's why I will be supporting the motion. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for that. Councillor Bindloss.
Councillor Glancy, can I just bring your attention to Louise Parker has got her hand raised. I don't know if she wants
to spotted that. Sorry.
Is that okay?
Yeah, that's
Thank
fine.
you. I'm not sure if Councillor Higgins has just covered this and their positivity with regards to the affordable housing element, but can we have a reason for going against officer recommendation, whether that's linked to the policy departure? I'd just like a bit of clarification, please.
Chair.
Right. So that is down to the proposer.
Yeah, well, I agree with Councillor Brown, what he said about it. Looking at it just SS3 does cover it, and I just think that the another reason, if you like, is that if we don't do something with these kind of villages, then they're just going to die. The life is going to go out of them. And I think that it's just so important that we do look to doing this, and we're giving a young person, hopefully, or a young family, the offer to be able to perhaps be brought up in the to live in the village that they were brought up in. And I do agree with Councillor Brown's statements about policy SS3.
Thank you. Does that help you, Louise?
I think in terms of the planning consideration, I was getting the vibe of the affordable housing element was leading to councillors considering against officer recommendation, but obviously that's
I mean that obviously, that obviously had something to do with it, Louise, as well.
Yeah.
Well,
Councillor Clancy, Bob Power also has his hand raised as well, so I don't know if he wants to add.
Probably going to say what I'm going to say, but I'll let him go ahead. Sorry, Bob, if you want to come in there.
I mean, I think Councillor Higgins largely covered it. Really, it seems to me that this is a bit of a borderline case in terms of sustainability, and that members are entitled to take the view, in light of that there is sufficient need, and of course, the affordable housing is a fairly powerful reason, because, you know, for 3 houses, I imagine we wouldn't normally get affordable housing. So, you know, I think those matters can readily be put in as a reason why we've departed from policy in this case.
Okay. I was going to sort of summarise to say that although the housing needs assessment provides limited evidence of housing need, but in this instance, due to the Kirkby Bellas being one of the better performing rural settlements in the borough, its connectivity to the surrounding area, plus the proposed affordable housing, this will make an ideal small development in that village. So I think it more than compensates, basically. It's more of a pro when we're looking at SS3. That was just my summary of what I understood was taking place. Councillor Faulkner.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Yes, it's a bit of an interesting one in some respects, this one, in that in all the years I've been on the planning committee, I can probably still count on one hand the amount of times we've had applications of a similar sort of nature in a village where the parish council and the villagers, it's all been a case of not in my backyard. So it's quite refreshing to actually get a parish council that actually want some development in their village, and with the affordable house being thrown in on a 3 property development, I think it's wonderful. So I shall be supporting this.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Bindloss, you have your hand raised.
Yes,
Sorry,
thank
it's
you,
taken a while to get round to you.
Yeah, that's okay. That's fine. Yeah, I think this is an excellent development, albeit small, but it's great. My point, though, is just one that we may slightly miss sometimes. And that is that we clearly have a growing number of elderly residents in rural locations. We know that. And the importance of bungalows for some of these residents. Obviously, as they're getting older, they're losing their mobility. This was something that was alluded to by a speaker earlier. If we have to move, if these people have to move from their established homes, you know, where they've got friends, they've got a support network, and in an older age, they've got to look at actually moving away from somewhere because the house that they actually have doesn't cater for them anymore. I think that's a really big deal, and I think that the issue or the opportunity to be able to have buy a bungalow is very, very important. We disrupting communities by not having bungalows available for people that would otherwise have to move out. And I'll be honest with you, I think that, you know, if you're in that position, that's a really mammoth thing for somebody that's in their later years and is faced with something like that. So that's really what I wanted to get over. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Louise, you have your hand raised. Is that a... No, that's gone now. Thank you. Councillor Posnett, you still have your hand raised.
Oh, sorry.
Okay. And now we have Councillor Pritchett.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. Can you hear me?
It's taken a while.
Can you hear me okay?
I can do.
Thank you very much, members. First of all, I'd like to thank the officers for their excellent pack of reports tonight. They were absolutely superb. I'd like to thank Councillor Brown for actually calling this one into committee last year. So I'm very, very grateful for that. I thoroughly enjoyed my time in Kirkby Bellas. The footpaths I went round. I visited the nearby villages. I checked all the bus timetables. I drove to the primary schools, and then I did a fair amount of background research before returning back to the papers. And I did what you would call a structured review regarding SS3. And we have a list of things that say what is sustainable, as do other around the country. But these things move on. You know, things like broadband. Sustainable transport is likely to be both bus and private. There's a cabinet next week at the Leicestershire County Council, and buses can come and go and be cut. Well, it was an excellent place for the bus into Melton, into Syston. What else is sustainable? Being in an area where there's a pharmacy delivery and not in the middle of nowhere. Choice of GP between Latham House and Syston and the use of Aston Bay. Easy for the route of a nurse to attend and an ambulance. The various choices of primary school, the two Brooksbury locations are very handy. And I ended up thinking, they're all right for me down here. And then you've got small shop deliveries and takeaways and things like that. Mobile hairdresser, pretty handy, probably somebody from the Melton area, and other support. And if you need at any time care services, it's quite possible that people providing the care services are living in the cheaper houses, which are only 4 miles away in Melton Mowbray. The survey, which I think was knocked a bit by saying it was desire, not need. There was a survey in Bottishad circa 2015 by the same people, which came up with the same results. And I would like to know how the government's application in districts actually is better than that particular survey. Councillor Bindlos has touched on the issue of people in great stress when they have to move in retirement to another location. There's now the economic need to downsize to pocket some money. As from a community's perspective, it's got its own parish council with a figure of 370, which by my previous research separately is falling to about the level where you talk about sustainable real community. So I was very, very impressed down there with more than the 2 yew trees. Where it fails, and I thought to myself as a customer as well, it fails with the lack of facilities for small children, the lack of facilities, it doesn't tick those boxes. I wouldn't want to move there with small children. And I quite agree with the reports back where the people have said it's at the top end of unsustainable. And I didn't get drawn into the Bars Bay or different because I'm aware there's a different set of, different circumstances and each one needs considering and documenting the decision, but I am supportive, but I cannot support encouraging a family that might have young children there. I can't support that. I can support the and I'm pleased the bungalows, I won't support 3-bedroom houses and such like that. But the idea to try and encourage into, it's stretching it too much for me, I'm sorry. And that's where I have a particular problem. Over 55s, yes, you look at the survey, but I can't go with, I struggle with trying to encourage young people into into that particular area. And that's what I've got to say. Chair, finished.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Higgins, you have your hand raised.
Yeah, it's just to maybe alleviate Councillor Pritchett's concern about young people and families in Kirkby Bellas. I'm just aware, and I know Councillor Brown would be as well, because I think they used to live in Frisbee, but I do know some people who are classed as essential workers, police, ambulance workers, NHS workers, who have chosen Kirkby Bellas to move their family and raise their children, and from a very young age, from I think before primary school, and I think now they're at the secondary school level, or probably even older now. That's how long I've known them. So it's just to say that some people have chosen that, and they've had very successful families in Kirkby Bellas.
Okay, thank you.
Just quickly on that one, Chair, I do appreciate that, Councillor Higgins, yes. But I think that if the people move out of the houses that they're in now and downsize, then people can make that choice. I don't think we should be encouraging them to make that choice or facilitating it. That's where we differ, I think, on this one. But thank you very much for what you've just said.
Okay, thank you. Any more contributions to the debate? No, can't see any other hands raised. Right. Well, I think we'll go to the vote. We've had a proposal and it has been seconded to permit and delegate to officers the normal conditions plus a condition to deal with the affordable discount market home, and also the involvement of the ward councillor in deciding the discount rate for the market home. Am I correct? I think I am. Yes, thank you very much. Right, so we'll now go to the vote.
Sorry, Chairman, just before you...
Yeah.
I thought Jim was indicating he wanted a section 106 to deal with the discount market.
Sorry. Yeah, sorry, well done. It's on here as well, but I haven't read it. I had my hand over it. Plus section 106. Oh, it's been a long day. Right, thank you. Right, so that's clear now. Right, so if we can go to the vote, I'll start off as I normally do with Councillor Bindloss.
For.
Thank you. Councillor Brown isn't here. Councillor Chandler, did Councillor Chandler hear sufficient of the debate? Councillor Chandler.
She's mute.
I know you're mute, Councillor Chandler.
I have to abstain again because
okay.
I didn't hear any of the speakers.
Okay, so
and I've got both the tablet on and the my normal computer desktop, and I can see you, but I cannot hear anything.
Oh dear. Well, I've made a note of connectivity problems.
Thank you. Thank you.
Councillor Faulkner.
For.
Thank you. Councillor Glancy for. Councillor Hewson.
For.
Thank you. Councillor Higgins.
For, and just like to thank the applicant on a voluntary affordable housing offer. I think it's fabulous. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Holmes.
For.
Thank you. Councillor Posnett.
For.
Thank you. Councillor Pritchett.
For.
And Councillor Steadman.
For.
Thank you. That is agreed to permit. So thank you very much, everybody. Okay. Next item on the agenda is urgent business. I do not have any urgent business to report this evening. So I'd like to thank everybody for taking part in tonight's meeting, including all the attendees and speakers. So thank you very much. So the meeting is closed at 7:46. Yeah, no, 7:44 on my computer. Okay. Thank you very much, everybody.